What is fear? I don't know. Don't ask me. This ain't a Jacob Geller video. I'm not prepared to answer that. That's far too philosophical for me. But what am I afraid of? Swiper the Fox from Dora the Explorer. That little guy spent all his time trying to steal what Dora worked so hard for. She'd always just be hanging out when there'd be that sound that can only be described as the embodiment of the word sneaky. And he'd just like creep in from the side and Dora would never see him. It was always down to me, little old me, to save Dora. If I didn't yell loud enough, who knows what would have happened to Dora. I was just a kid. I wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility.
If you see the fox, yell Swiper!
Swiper! What I'm trying to say is that Pause is the Dora the Explorer of horror games. I'm an adult now, and I'm proud to say that I am no longer afraid of Dora the Explorer. But as an adult, I have developed a new fear that is similar to Swiper the Fox, utterly innocuous, yet life-threateningly terrifying. Slight tripping hazards. Pause is a health and safety nightmare. Whomever was in charge of construction and furnishing this place did an appalling, dare I say, downright negligent job. I don't know if I used whomever right there. I've never in my life used the word whom. There's so much wrong with this place. I'm surprised that it's remained this way for as long as it has. Someone has had to have been hurt. The state of this place is abysmal, and the fines the owner of this establishment must have accrued presumably rival the GDP of most nations. This swimming pool complex is a death trap and an accident waiting to happen, and like any YouTube commenter, Twitch chatter, or Redditor, I have decided to come in and give unwarranted advice, or just point out things that make me slightly uncomfortable upon witnessing. I'm allowed to make stupid choices, okay? It's fine. Even if those decisions are standing barefoot at the top of the stairs, surrounded by steam and water, it's fine. We're all just one bad decision away from a good story. For those not in the know, Pause is supposed to be a, say it with me now, liminal space horror game. What is a liminal space, you may ask? No one's going to ask that question. Everyone knows what a liminal space is. It's 2024. It might even be 2025 by the time this video comes out. Pause is a simple game. You just wander around from each level looking for the exit. It's a walking sim, really. It's less about scary monsters and jump scares and more about scary vibes. It's great if, like me, this was your first real horror game. I'd played games like Left 4 Dead and Dead Rising, but they don't count because they're not scary. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. This video isn't about the game Pause. This game is about something much scarier. Health and safety. To begin with, there's not really any signage anywhere. Like, barely any at all. People are stupid and need to be told what to do, otherwise we will do everything in our power to make sure we die as swiftly as possible. Yeah, in a couple of the areas there are like no running signs, but if you think that a couple no running signs are going to fly with the bureaucrats upstairs, then I'm sure you wouldn't mind walking across this perfectly safe field. Honestly, you could just have a sign that says there are no signs, and you'd probably sort yourself out quite nicely. Now, this game is, I believe, Finnish, so maybe health and safety is a bit more lax up there, but I know damn well that Finnish people aren't 2-foot-tall gnomes, so why on God's white-tiled earth are these steps so small? That's not a regulation riser right there. For general access steps, the rise needs to be at least 150mm, that's the bit going up and down, and the going needs to be at least 220mm, that's the bit that you stand on. Every step in this place that does not meet their requirements needs to be ripped out and replaced with conforming stairs. Why are the stairs in this place so small? These steps are minuscule. Okay, so the steps may not actually be what I thought they were. So these steps here are definitely for the Finnish gnomes. These are tiny steps. These aren't good. These steps, on the other hand, at first glance when I was writing it, I was very emotional about whether or not these steps were regulation or not. But I did at some point do some. I put on my MatPat hat and did some very basic math and did that. We worked out that the character is roughly 15-ish tiles high. I say I did. And the average Finnish male is 179 centimeters tall. I rounded that up. If we do 179 divided by 15, we do get what rounds up to 12. So that means that each one of those tiles should, in theory, be roughly 12 centimeters tall, which means that riser right there, this here, is in fact a regulation riser. The going was never a problem, it was just the riser. This here is not. That is for gnomes, and for the sake of, I don't want to remove it from the script, this isn't decorative, there is a step, you're meant to stand on that. And while we're here looking at these stairs, I know that these are only really, it's a minor point really. No it isn't, actually no it's not. It's not a minor point. The 90% of this complex is stair. There's like no handrails on any of the stairs. Like you could have one single step going down and there's probably a law somewhere saying that you need to have a handrail. Like a comically small handrail, you probably need one. I mean, for goodness sake, these steps right here are just a tripping hazard that leads right over the edge into what I can only assume is a bottomless pit. Oh, and let's not forget the bottomless pit. What's your plan if someone falls down there? I bet you don't have one. Don't go, oh, it's a bottomless pit. No one will know if someone falls down it. Yes, they will. People have families, people have friends, and when those people realise the loved one is missing, they're going to ask questions. And they're going to find out that the last place they were seen going into was the place notorious for having unsecured bottomless pits, surrounded by tripping hazards. And maybe while you're at it, fixing all these problems, maybe don't have a diving board into the bottomless pit. That's just not a good look. This place is full of large open holes that are just perfect for someone to unknowingly wander over the edge of. I'm not here to stop you from having a large pit. Everyone can appreciate a large hole. You just need to make sure that they are clearly signposted and that there's a reasonable attempt at restricting people's ability to accidentally fall in. Or in other terms, you're going to need guardrails. Guardrails, guardrails, guardrails. Pause. More like unsecured drop. Not to be confused with a handrail. If someone can fall off it, they will. Any step you're not meant to go down, that's a guardrail. Large drop, that's a guardrail. Pause that you're clearly meant to be playing in. Don't you try and be smart with me, but pause you're not meant to be in. You better believe that's a guardrail. And those guardrails need to be over a meter high. I refuse to believe that any of these guardrails are over a meter high. I am not like 19 feet tall. These guardrails are minuscule. That is a weak rail, a bad rail, a tripping hazard. This entire complex is full of unguarded drops, and I think that is quite possibly the scariest thing in this wet hellscape so far. And don't you activate your trap card again and just hit me with the if you fall off time rewinds. That's non-canon. A member of the public walks in here, falls off the edge, and you think the hand of God is gonna just pluck them right out. No, that's not gonna happen, because swimming is a sin, and that's our punishment for entering the realm of fish. We're not meant to be there. Get out. I was talking to a fish last week, and he had nothing but bad things to say about you. And if you want to know how important guardrails are, there was a nearby steel mill holding a tour for the public, so you can go walk around and see what was going on. And an old lady was in that group, and she tripped. There was a bit of like loose detritus on the floor or whatever. She tripped, fell straight into a vat of molten steel, and obviously went up in flames. It was horrific, really. Ironically, that steel was being used to make handrails. Now I just made that up, but you could imagine at least. You know what? There's a lot of problems in this game / complex, depending on if we're role playing as a gamer or as a health and safety executive officer. So I think that it might be better if I just go down the list. There is a lot. There's a decent amount. I don't know how much time this is going to take up. So I think that it might be better if I just go down the list. So, there's at least one area just made of bare brick and several places where visibility drops to 0, some of which lead into unseen walls. There's unguarded pools with no way to get out, no wet floor signs, no fire escapes, no life-saving equipment, no lifeguards, even the Olympics has lifeguards, no fire assembly points, pits that lead to God knows where, a disturbing lack of staff, like what if there's a code brown? No fire alarms, flooded carpeted halls that are just a breeding ground for disease and mold, limited signage of the directional variety, which isn't a very, very boring spin-off of my channel. It's a genuine complaint, because how do I know where I am in relation to everything else in this place? It's huge, it's vast. What if there's an emergency? At one point there's an escalator that has nothing to alert you that you should be wearing shoes to ride. Like, I know this could fall under signage, but like we have just stepped out of a pool, which does have a humongous unsecured drop, just massive, coming out of what I only assumed to be a hole with a demon in it. We've stepped out of a pool and seen a cryptic guide on what we're meant to do, and then we've stepped into the corridor equivalent of a cuttlefish, hypnotizing us towards our death at the hands of an escalator. Also, always make sure to have your shoelaces tied. Like, you have to be wearing shoes when you're on an escalator, and make sure that they are tied, otherwise the laces will get caught in the mechanism and your legs will get ripped off. I hope I'm not the only one who gets scared of being sucked into the top or bottom of an escalator. I also hope I'm not the only one that takes an unnecessarily huge step over the bit where it dips under. Scattered throughout the complex, there's a handful of ghosts haunting around, which technically might not be a health and safety violation, although it does kind of make me wonder, is there a dead body in here, which is a health and safety violation. Either way, the ghosts are a bit unethical. You know, think about how the spirit feels trapped here. Like, think of the families of the deceased at least. They want to go swimming and they have granddad shaming them all the time that, oh, you don't visit my grave anymore. It's like, you know, at least get the Vatican on the blower. I don't know if there's any rules about non-Euclidean environments, but given this place's track record, it's not looking good. I would not trust the public in moving around a non-Euclidean environment. Like, these environments are very much not safe for the general public. As I have said, we will do everything in our power to make sure we do not ever see the light of day again. There's dangerously unsafe wooden walkways that on one occasion broke as I was traversing it, open access for the public to just wander into the service tunnels, a pillar of mystery flesh for the public to fondle, no medical facilities, a giant open buzzsaw blade that seems to turn on if you go down the slide, no fire extinguishers. At some point you just end up in someone's house, which might not violate any health and safety guidelines, but it is rather unprofessional. This slide right here, which I don't even think I have to point out what's wrong with this. There's like 8 problems with it before I even get close to it. Slides that end with sun drops, unmarked underwater hazards, this swing right here which made me feel unadulterated terror. This is irrelevant, but I just thought I would mention that I just want to talk about this slide very briefly. When you stare at this swing, the game takes control. So, on health and safety violation there, you get possessed by a phantom when you walk down here. There's a djinn in that swing. When you stare at this swing, the game takes control of your camera a little bit and pulls your focus on the abyss. And to look away, you have to fight the game's pull, which for some reason, when I was playing this at like midnight, it made it like really hard for me to actually look away. Like, I genuinely wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to look and I was being like drawn to look down there, or if it was the game forcing me to look. It was a weird sense of permanent suspense and dread that at the time when I was doing it, it quite literally took my breath away in a feeling that I'd never experienced until now. And not to be melodramatic, but when I go swimming, I tend to not want to have to navigate through an industrial factory to get to the pool. Not to be confused with a non-industrial factory. You see that ladder right there? Looks harmless enough, right? Wrong. Unsecured on a slippery floor, and nothing to stop the public from just climbing up and disappearing into the vents. Hey, don't you try and hide it. White plastic chairs just strewn around haphazardly around walkways, no sources of drinking water, few secure changing areas that are mostly just toilet stalls scattered throughout the facility, unsignposted of course, and on the topic of toilets, there are plenty of them. Although, I do have to raise a complaint about the placement of some of them. This site is a danger to all those who decide to venture within, and as such, I'm issuing this place a prohibition notice. They are to stop all business immediately, and anyone on site should be vacated. At least I would, but that might just be for offending construction sites. I don't have any credentials. I just walked in here with a clipboard and a hard hat and started pointing at things, and no one stopped me. Oh, also, there's a live sheep just wandering around. His tail wags, though. Thank you for watching. I'm reclining in my chair now. Thank you for watching. If you've played pause and noticed any health and safety violations that I didn't mention, which there are most certainly millions of, possibly, tell me. Leave a comment. Tell me right now. Subscribe if you want to. Like the video as well, possibly. Even if you don't have any health and safety violations, leave a comment anyway. Be nice to me though. I will cry. Maybe just tell me your favorite health and safety regulation. We've all got one. You don't have to be shy.